Hello and welcome to Gettable, AFL.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to our good friends at Google. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Cal Twomey. Cal, the grand final is only a few days away. That means the trade period is also only a few days away. We've got a massive episode on the show today. We are going to be previewing all 18 clubs' trade period. Before we get to that though, Cal, don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram. There we go, at Gettable. Over the course of the trade period, if anyone can make us laugh in the comments across the trade period, we're going to need a laugh. Let me tell you that. You'll get a free mug. We'll send you a mug across the trade period. So send in your comments. You have to be following us. Send in your comments. We'll do that across the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be everywhere during the trade period, Cal, because have a look at this. Starting today, that is today, from 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, we will be on Trade Radio. Get down to the MCG across the next couple of days. See us live at the Footy Festival. And then starting from next Tuesday on AFL.com.au from 2 p.m. Eastern every single day throughout the trade period is Gettable Trade Desk Live. That's where you can ask us your questions. Cal, let's get to our cover story today.
Yes, let's have a look at it.
Christian Petrarca.
It's the Superstar Shuffle. It's not a dance move, but they are dancing around clubs because at the moment the Demon superstar Christian Petrarca is in the moving queue. There's a lot of superstars that are about to go through. So we're going to get through every club in this massive trade period preview. Is this Tiger on the way out? The moves to land a defender. And the next $1 million Hawk emerges. We'll get to that shortly. But let's get rolling because we want to start with, of course, the Adelaide Crows on their trade and free agency period. Let's start with the Adelaide Crows. Obviously, they didn't quite get there in the final series. Here they are. Their targets clearly are Callum Archie, who they've got even a 5-year deal in front of with a trigger there, and Christian Petrarca and Zach Merritt. They want to add to their midfield. These two are the big ones.
Yes. So
I think Archie gets done probably in the last half an hour of the trade period, but that's happening. Christian Petrarca, though, has interest in Adelaide and clearly is looking at moving. They are keen on him and he's open to looking at them. They've thrown their hat in the ring for Zach Merritt, but it's the Hawks for him and nothing else on his radar at this point. But Petrarca as an option and Archie, obviously, someone who they can get through the trade period, clearly on their market. 14 and a future one, would that get Petrarca done?
I think so.
You reckon?
Well, I reckon Melbourne, we know they like getting into drafts. They know they like having the picks. So as many picks as possible would help them, certainly. But I can see Christian Petrarca making sense for the Adelaide Crows going forward now as well. So I think that's an interesting one. The only player who could be on the way out is Jordan Butts, but he's contracted and we'd think Adelaide would want to hold him to his deal. Let's get to Brisbane. We know that Sam Draper is heading there as a free agent, as is Oscar Allen. They've got some interest in Connor Budrick. They're one of 4 clubs to have some interest in Connor Budrick. I think they're one of the 2 clubs that are still in the race for Connor Budrick. I think he's narrowed his decision down to maybe Brisbane or the Western Bulldogs or staying at Gold Coast. Okay. So that's an interesting one for them. But the outs are also intriguing, Kel.
Yeah, and Brandon Starcevic is the one that has to make a decision as soon as next week. Now that the grand final is going to be played, he's in the team. Obviously, a big part of that having dominated the grand final last year. Look, any free agent at this point of the year hasn't made a decision with West Coast hovering with a really strong offer. You think he's probably more out than in, but he's had a strange year in terms of his concussion and pushing back his decision. Devon Robertson as well, out of contract this time around. They have to manage points too.
Yes.
So managing the points is an issue given the Dan Hannibal bid. Jordan Ridley won't be coming as well now, so they had interest in him. Where do they go next? Where do they pivot? Because this is a club that likes to pivot, really creative in its strategy. Where do they go next in terms of that defensive marker?
Yeah, they're going to need one over the next couple of weeks. All right, let's get to the Blues. The Blues are an interesting case ahead of the trade period. They've got some interest in Sam Flanders. They're one of about 4 or 5 clubs that have interest in Sam Flanders.
What, meeting them this week?
Campbell Chesser, we know he's already requested a trade there, as has Buku Kamas, as has Liam Reedy. So they are all in the bag for the Blues. They need to get deals done for them. And Chankorth Jouth, they've got some interest in him as well.
Well, they've been linked there. I'm not sure that's a certainty that happens given the other targets that they've got in mind. They've got looked at him. I'm not sure it's a certainty, though, at this point.
The outs are the big one for the Blues, though.
Yeah, well, it's all about Charlie Curnow, isn't it? And what happens there and what sort of strategy they take. I think they also have some interest in Ollie Florent as well, but that's probably not contingent on Charlie Curnow going. That could also be a separate level of interest. So Charlie Curnow last week met with Graham Wright. He's reiterated his interest in leaving the footy club. He wants to move. He's desperate to move. I think Sydney is best placed in terms of its trade capital to get something done and probably the most desperate. But Geelong clearly is going to make a huge tilt at this, and we'll get to Gold Coast soon as well as one of these 3 clubs that we've spoken about since July as being in the Charlie Curnow race. But you lose those 3 players, what does it mean for this guy?
Yeah.
You'd want something good.
That's why they've been adamant the whole way through they need top liners. They don't want to get worse in terms of their list next year. And I think Michael Voss will be leading the way in that. They also need to manage their points with bids for Harry Dent and Jack Ison coming.
And bid for Cody Walker next year. So they pick 10 is on the trade table, as we spoke about last week. I think under the new bidding system, which we revealed on Monday for next year, they want to get an extra future first-round pick because I think they're going to need it under the new system. So pick 10 this year, which will be the Tom De Koning pick. That might just flip into next year.
Yeah. All right, let's look at Collingwood because they face an intriguing couple of weeks, particularly after their prelim final exit. We know they've got some interest in Jack Buller. He is going to request a trade to the Pies.
Well, he's already told them that he wants to go there. And I know you wrote last week about them upping their offer, the Swans, to 2 years to hold him on to stay. But his intentions at this stage are to go to Collingwood.
What about Stephen May? Do you reckon they've got some interest there?
Well, they do, yeah. And they're exploring that one, assessing him as an option. It would cost them next to nothing. It'd go down the line. I mean, they're already in for next year, aren't they? They've re-signed Pendles, Howe, Sidebottom. A couple of these guys, Brodie Myercheck and Jamie Elliott, have 2-year offers in front of them. But interest there clearly from Melbourne in Myercheck and Elliott Gold Coast. But the offers are there to keep them. So they're already a foot in the door of moving into 2026 as another challenger. So Stephen May would help them, I think, and comes for nothing.
Do you think the offer for Jamie Elliott deviates and changes and gets upped now, given how good he was in the prelim, given that situation, given they're all in for 2026?
Yeah, well, he's so important, isn't he?
Yeah.
They still need him, and he's probably more important to them. He's more important to them than Myercheck. So that's the Collingwood look at the trade period. Let's go over to the Bombers because there's no club potentially busier than the Bombers if this man continues to push for a trade as he has done. Zach Merritt. Clearly the biggest storyline heading into this trade period. Andrew Welsh, the new president of the Bombers, has said they won't be entertaining offers for Zach Merritt. Now it's over. So there's either two ways this is going about it from Essendon's point of view. It's either they're not trading him and don't even bother, or this is we're not trading him, but come to us with your best deal and your biggest deal. So this is either pushing Hawthorn to come to them with a really, really, really strong offer that in the end means they have to take it. But at this stage, and we heard from Zach Merritt on Brownlow Medal night, he's still weighing things up. And that's a very different message to what Andrew Welsh said the next day around them not doing this deal. Jordan Ridley is obviously committed to staying there. I think he's had his shot across the club now. This is the point where he made his point about the fitness issues. He's not been happy with how it's going and how they've been handled, and he's put them on notice to some degree, I think. So that one's there. They're also into some players, though. Sam Flanders, they're one of the clubs that he's meeting. They have 3 years on the table for Braden Fiorini, the free agent. It could even be up to 4, potentially, if they really want to make this one done. Leadership standards, unrestricted free agent. The unrestricted free agency bit, though, Riley, Sam Draper's leaving. They're getting a compo pick for him. So if they want Braden Fiorini, they're going to have to trade for him so they don't dilute this one. And Sam Flanders is also managed by the same company that manages Zach Merritt. So you wonder if these things can work in system if he does have an interest in going to the Bombers. Zane Dersma, if he goes anywhere, I think it'd be the Bombers.
To play with his brother Xavier?
Yeah.
All right. Essendon's got plenty on its plate. Fremantle doesn't have much though, Cal. Let's have a look. We know that they've had some interest in Judd McVie. We think he's still going to stay with Melbourne. He's now met with the new coach, Stephen King.
Yeah. He still hasn't made a call though.
Yes.
It's weird.
There's still confidence from the D's though, is what I would say. Liam Reedy, we know he's going to Carlton. Will Brodie, we know he's going to Port Adelaide. They've got pick 11. They're one of the more quiet clubs in this year's trade period.
Keep moving.
Geelong. They've got a fair bit in their plate, and it's led by this man, Charlie Curnow. Whether or not they can persuade Carlton to part with Charlie Curnow. Rowan Marshall, another player who's under contract at St Kilda, but they've got some interest there as well. And James Warple, we think he's going to join the Cats on a 4-year free agency deal.
Not expecting a decision from Warple until next week, obviously after the grand final. Free agency opens next Friday. These two, though, you can't have both.
Well, how do they do that? How do they do Charlie Curnow?
All I'd say about Geelong is they get stuff done most of the time, don't they? I mean, they got Bailey Smith done with 17 and a packet of chips last year. Uncontracted, very different. That's a good point. But obviously they have draft selections. But if they're going to get Rowan Marshall, that's going to take their first round pick this year. I think that'd be the only price they'd have to pay for that, and St Kilda would accept nothing more than that, or less than that, sorry. So it's going to be a challenge. They're going to have to give up something. Are they at that point where they want to give up something? I don't know about that. They're only going to get stronger, though, aren't they? They only ever seem to get stronger. Reece Stanley going around again. Does that open the door a little bit to Rowan Marshall coming on for next year? So no one's in the interest of moving either.
No. And the other thing with Charlie Curnow is where you look at Gold Coast and Sydney, they've got tradable assets. They've got assets you think they could fetch them something. I don't think Geelong has any assets they want to trade.
No, I mean, Ollie Dempsey would look it look like somebody. He's not going to want to go, and they won't want to let him go. And Shannon Neal clearly as well is going to be staying there. So, yeah, I agree. It's a challenge, but he does have a strong interest in getting to Geelong.
All right, let's have a look at Gold Coast because they're another club in the market potentially for Charlie Curnow. They've been chasing a small forward very hard as well. That's why the links to Jamie Elliott and Bobby Hill have bobbed up. And then Christian Petrarca, is he a chance of landing there, Cal?
Well, he's got an openness to that option more than he did last year, and they were interested in him last year, but he didn't have any interest in leaving Victoria in 2024. So Charlie Curnow in a similar boat in that how did they actually get either of those things done? One of their gun youngsters would unlock it clearly. Jed Walter, Bailey Humphrey, Ethan Reid. That's not going to happen. They don't want to move these guys. Jed Walter is signed until the end of next year. He could unlock that Curnow deal, but the Suns don't want to lose him and he's not pushing for it.
No.
Gold Coast has actually recently put forward a new offer to keep him beyond the end of 2026. So offered him a 2-year extension beyond that year, as well as a 5-year option as well, which would take him through to free agency. So that shows their stance on him not being a part of the Curnow deal. Small forwards, as you mentioned, they've been hovering around Jamie Elliott. And Braden Fiorini had a 2-year offer from the Suns. That's now been up to a 3-year offer. So they are dead keen on keeping Braden Fiorini at the football club. Flanders will be elsewhere. Butterick, as you spoke about, and Malcolm Roses has a decision to make in coming days. But a couple of those guys are out. Braden Fiorini still weighing things up. Yeah,
Fiorini and Budrick as uncontracted players become really interesting and really wanted players across the market. They've got a point situation to manage as well. They've got 6-13 and
we've got a situation
16,
here.
But we have a situation. It is the Dill Patterson and Zeke Ullin are coming into the football club.
Well, and if you want to take 6 academy boys as well, or 5 or 6 academy boys across your draft, they're going to have to be very smart. But they've been as smart as anyone in the point system and strategy process of that over the last couple of years. The challenge now is whether actually they have to keep pick 6. So that pick was potentially on the table, that Port Adelaide pick. Whether they have to keep it now to match the early bids is something they have to go through. All
right, let's get to the Giants, one of the more quiet clubs in this year's period. They've got some interest in Jane Laverde. That'll happen. That'll go through probably as an SSP or as a DFA. Robbie Fox, another player that our colleague Josh Gabelich has linked to the Giants. It's more about the exits, though. We know Jacob Ware's heading to Port Adelaide as an unrestricted free agent. Wade Dirksen will go to Melbourne. That'll be likely as a delisted free agent. And then Lecalier has requested a trade to St Kilda. That, to me, has all the hallmarks of pre-season draft, I reckon.
Well, Giants have done that before, haven't they? Jackson Haitley a few years ago. He's going to be 5th on the priority list in terms of the trades and incomings for the Saints, given he's out of contract and there's not a whole lot of bargaining power from the Giants. And they just don't have much salary cap space or list spots to actually go and hit the market very much. So that'll be them done. Hawthorn, though.
No, before you get to that, Cal, it is grand final week.
Oh, yes.
And Geelong, Brisbane will play off on Saturday to decide the 2025 season. So our searchable question for the week, Cal, using Google search data, which of the 2 grand final teams have been searched for the most across the last month?
Oh, I'm going to go with Brisbane.
You would be correct.
Yes.
Brisbane. Search more than Geelong.
There you go.
Interesting. All right. One club who would have been searched for a lot over the last month is Hawthorn because their rise up the AFL ladder has been dramatic and it's been speedy. Zach Merritt. We watched last Friday night at the MCG, the prelim week. They need a player like Zach Merritt in their midfield, don't they?
Every team does. I mean, he's a superstar. He's been midfield for the Hawks all year, and again, that's the case this season. To me, it feels like Zach Merritt is plan A, Christian Petrarca plan B. But how do these 2 circles overlap and weave into each other? What does Petrarca do while Essendon is remaining firm that Merritt's not going anywhere if Hawthorn is his priority?
Does he wait it out?
Does he wait it out or does he seek another option, a backup option? How does Hawthorn, keep 2 big fish on the hook at once? I'm fascinated to see how that one plays out. All the while, they've got pick 8, a future first, a future first. What's the price for Zach Merritt? What makes Essendon move? Because thinking about pick 8, that moves back a few spots already. That's okay. But their future first pick, well, they'll be hoping to win the premiership next year. That's pick 18. And then if you go 2 years in advance, that's Tasmania's draft. So let's say it's pick 15 in 2 years. That becomes pick 25 or so. So what's the actual worth of this guy?
Going back to what you said about Essendon in terms of what camp are they in, the we're not trading him or we're really not trading him, I think they start in the we're not trading him basket. You see what you can get. You do what you mentioned last week in terms of drop some contracts on some heads of players in the competition and say, if we got pick 8 and we've got these other picks, would you take it for one of your contracted players? If that doesn't come off, then you go to the we're really not trading him basket.
I'd give a list of 8 players to Hawthorn and say, go and find us one of these ones from around the competition and then we'll talk.
All right, James Warple, we think he's going to Geelong. Sam Butler has some interest in West Coast. That's a really interesting one. I'm told the offer is more lucrative from the Eagles, so whether or not he decides to take that or sees a role in the Hawthorn side going forward, because he's got the 2-year offer to stay, played a very good role in the finals.
He did. Henry Hustwaite, I think, could move if there's an opportunity there. Essendon has looked at him separate to the Merritt situation. And CJ, well, we spoke about that before, contractor for a couple of years. Don't know if Carlton is as in on that as some of the other targets.
All right, let's get to Melbourne now, the Melbourne Football Club, because they've got a lot going on, does new coach Stephen King. So Brodie Myercheck, if he leaves Collingwood, he's going to Melbourne. Max Heath, we know he's going to get to Melbourne, as will Wade Dirksen. They've got some interest in Sam Flanders. They're one of those 4 clubs, and Malcolm Roses Jr. has been on their radar as well.
Well, this is one of the clubs that is going to shape the trade period and the free agency period. The last 2 years, they've shaped the trade and free agency period by not doing the deals.
Yes.
Oliver and Petrarca. This year, I think they're going to be the...
And Cozzy.
And this year, I think they're going to be the shapers in doing the deals and making the moves. And this man, Stephen King, is going to be a big part of that as well, in reshaping what this list looks like under his watch. As you speak about, they're the targets. Sam Flanders right in the mix there, has the relationship already with Stephen King in terms of their midfield mix. They've just missed out on Marcus Windhager last week as well, so does that up the ante in terms of how hard they go for Flanders? Roses, I think, is the outside chance there, more likely to go elsewhere. Who's moving, though, is the talk, isn't it? It's Stephen May, as we've spoken about. They've asked him to look at his options. That means you're out the door. We're not taking too much for you. Christian Petrarca, well, what's the price you play or have to pay to get a superstar out of a footy club? Spargo's moved already, and Judd McVie, they're still waiting on the decision from him. As you said, look, hasn't actually been offered anything yet in firm detail from West Coast or Fremantle, hasn't met with those clubs, so just taking his time. It's a little bit of a different one. Clayton Oliver too, until this is actually the bell rings on that final day, I'm not sure about what happens with Clayton Oliver. I think he's still a backup option for some of these clubs with midfielders in mind. But Petrarca clearly is the big talking point with the Demons.
It certainly is. All right, let's get to the Kangas. That's where we find a searchable question. Nick wants to know, what's the latest on Jai Simpkin, the captain? He had some interest in leaving the football club. I can't see this happening.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but again, in the superstar mix, and he's not a superstar as such, but he's a captain of a footy club with 4 years to go on his deal at about $1 million. So who's taking that on, and where does he sit in the pecking order of these clubs looking for midfield options? So does Essendon look at him?
Would he be one of your 8 guys if you were the Bombers?
No. The 8 guys has to be 23 and under.
Yeah.
GWS would be a midfield option. They don't have the money or the space to do it. West Coast, I'm not sure he'd want to go there. Collingwood maybe is a fit in terms of their midfield group with some aging guys in there. But adding Charlie Spargo adds to that forward half mix. Tyler Young, I think they're the outside chance there. Probably not likely. But Zane Dursman, as we spoke about before, has expressed his frustration without asking for a trade at this point. Essendon, with their pick hand, will be one to watch throughout the period.
Okay, let's get to Port Adelaide, because it's going to be a quiet period for them as well. We think Will Brodie will go there. He's contracted. That won't cost them much. They're into Braden Fiorini as an unrestricted free agent. They've already got Jacob Ware on the hook. He will leave as an unrestricted free agent as well. You mentioned the offers for Fiorini. How into him are Port Adelaide?
Well, they've got the 3-year offer there for him. And the bit about Port Adelaide's mix in terms of these experienced guys is that they've shed their list and cut their list pretty heavily in the first off-season under Josh Carr. A lot of change happening at Port Adelaide all over the football club. They need some more depth and experience on their list. So that's why they're targeting these guys. Fiorini, I think if he moved, it'd probably be moving back to Victoria. That's where he's from. But Port Adelaide is in that mix, clearly. Ivan Soldo, well, whether he is on the ruck merry-go-round again or not, we wait to see. But he's a name who could pop up if the clubs start to get desperate for their ruck hands.
Don't have many picks. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and move a couple more of them into the future as well, given
Definitely.
how much academy and father-son kids they've got coming through next year.
Absolutely, and I think also, you're right, their second round and third rounders are on the table to be pushed into the forward drafts, and they won't be the only clubs in that mix either. And there's clubs that would take them because they need some points.
Yes, there are. All right, let's get to Richmond, and that's where we find another searchable question from Alexander, who wants to know, who do the Tigers take at picks 2 and 3? They will move to 3 and 4 after that Oscar Allen compensation falls, though.
Yeah, they will. We just did the Phantom draft, Phantom form guide, I should say.
I saw that.
How did I make that mistake? It's not a Phantom draft, it's a Phantom form guide.
Your pet peeve, and you're falling for it.
It's only my thing. Look, it's a tough call. I mean, I think Duffma has firmed, obviously, for that 1 and 2 spots in terms of Willem Dersmer and Cooper Duff-Tytler. But what the Tigers do next, I think the players who should be right in their mix are Xavier Taylor, who I really like.
Yes.
And I also think that Sullivan Roby has pushed himself into that conversation. Same for the Essendon picks right behind them as well. I also think Richmond is open, as told clubs this as well, that it's open to moving back one of these picks or even pushing it into the future. So it could be a case of can they slide from pick 3 to pick 12 and get an extra future first for next year and really spread these out.
Okay. They traded out a lot of senior players last year to generate more early picks. They don't have that much capital on stock this year.
The other bit is, sorry, just on the draft, the other bit is they could push back and get a later selection for Louis Kellaway as well,
Yes, yeah.
who might fit in somewhere between that 30 to 50 mark of the draft of father-son there.
Tyler Young's become a wanted player.
He has, and I think he's narrowed down his decision now to staying at Richmond or going to West Coast, where he's got a deal of up to 3 or 4 years. Obviously has links at West Coast, the Richmond Lynx, with Matt Clark, the list manager there, who drafted him at the Tigers. Also, Minnie, Jack Graham, Liam Baker. So there's links there as well. Malcolm Roses Jr. is still weighing up Richmond versus Sydney in his call. That'll come in the next couple of days, I expect. All
right, let's get to St Kilda. They've got a lot on the hook already. Tom DeConing and Jack Silvani will be going there.
Nearly too long the list.
Liam Ryan. He's already requested a trade there, under contract though. Value's an interesting question there. Leclerc, as you mentioned before, might be the 4th or 5th priority for the Saints, but he will get to that football club. And then they're one of the clubs meeting with Sam Flanders. Some interesting movers as well, though.
Yeah, and pick 7, I think, would be on the table for Sam Flanders as well to get that deal done if he gets to them as his priority option. That'd be a huge haul, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And particularly, I think Flanders as a midfield option would add some round out that group.
Yeah.
Yeah, who's moving? I mean, Royal Marshall, that could be, it's pick purchasing in other form, isn't it?
Yeah.
You pay 1.7 for Tom DeConing to get in a ruckman, but also then you buy the pick, and you lose the money in terms of the Royal Marshall bid. So if you're working with me here, it's about $700,000 for maybe a first-round pick if you work it out that from Geelong's point of view. Callum Wilkie still hasn't said absolutely no to the Western Bulldogs, but he hasn't said yes either. So, and I don't think he's going to. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be pushed that hard with St Kilda to trade. So I'd expect he stays. Anthony Caminiti, we spoke about Collingwood. Showing a little bit of interest again. I think it's likely he stays there. And Max Heath is out the door, of course, on his way to Melbourne. But Ross is a happy man. All
right, let's get to the Swans now. The Sydney Swans, they are one of the clubs in for Charlie Curnow. I think they've got the capability to be the most aggressive for Charlie Curnow in terms of what they could trade out. They've got the talent, they've got the depth there.
Okay, so what's the deal then?
Well, I don't know what the deal is, but I mean, could you move players like we've mentioned before, like an Ollie Florent, like a Will Hayward, like a James Rowbottom, one of those guys that are away from their untouchables, bring more capital in, trade that to Carlton, get a few more clubs involved. Regardless of which way this goes, if Charlie Curnow is going to leave Carlton, it's going to have to be a multi-club trade, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the big ones usually are these days, aren't they?
Yes.
We spoke about Dan Houston last year, Jason Horne-Francis a couple of years ago. So it takes different bits and then you end up with the full sum of it all rather than just this is went here, this is what they lost. Malcolm Roses Jr. still weighing up the Swans, as we spoke about. Peter Adams, what's going on there? Because he's had an offer in front of him at the Swans for a while now. Yeah,
2-year deal on the table from the Swans, hasn't signed it yet. Does he want to jump on the merry-go-round? I think maybe Peter Adams is just waiting to see exactly who moves and what moves in terms of the ruck merry-go-round, whether or not a club needs a ruck and says, hey, you're going to be our number one guy. Clearly he's stuck behind Brodie Grundy at the Swans, so maybe he wants to find an opportunity to be a number one ruck somewhere in the competition. And then Jack Baller has the 2-year offer on the table from the Swans. He's told them he wants to get to Collingwood. Might not be as easy as first thought, though, given that the Swans want to retain him and have offered him now 2 years to potentially stay at the football club.
Out of contract helps him. Ollie Florent, 4 years to go on his deal. And he's been pretty keen on staying. He hasn't pushed for a move at all. He's pretty relaxed about staying at the Swans. I do wonder if Carlton can eke him over the line with some extra interest, though, because he did get pushed out of that side under Dean Cox this year. All
right, let's get to West Coast now. We know we spoke about just before. They are into Tyler Young. They are into Zam Butler. They've got a bigger offer on the table for him, the uncontracted Hawk. And they are into Brandon Starcevich, which is going to need to be a trade as well. We've spoken about this a few times. They won't want to dilute the Oscar Allen compensation. So if they are to get Brandon Starcevich across the line, I have a feeling that one's going to be a trade.
Well, it has to be, doesn't it? They're still waiting on AFL assistance package to be confirmed, so that'll come next week. I think they get up to 4 extra rookie spots, and maybe that's filled up with a couple of Category B spots to fill with their NGA players, but also maybe that opens the door to get some more senior options through as SSP or rookie options that way. And plus maybe an end of first round pick. Either they have to trade or they just get it in and of itself. That's still being worked through. That'd be the one I think that would open the door more simply to get Brandon Starcevic to go. Or Brisbane would ask for pick 15 and they'd keep the end of first rounder, something like that. It's a longer term deal for Brandon Starcevic. He's clearly weighing that up. It's a one of two options for him now. They're obviously going to get the pick 2 we expect for Oscar Allen to move, and lots of shenanigans obviously with West Coast, Brisbane. There's the Oscar Allen exit, there's the potential Brandon Starcevic exit the other way. There's pick 1, there's pick 2, there's compensation, there's bidding on Dan Annabelle right in that mix as well. So look, lots of moving pieces there. Campbell Chester too had the deal for 2 years and trigger for a third at the Eagles, but wants to move back to Victoria. And Tyler Young, as we spoke about, has become a priority signing for them.
All right, let's get to the Western Bulldogs. That's where we find our final searchable question for the day. Ryan wants to know, will the Doggies get a key defender? Clearly, they've offered 4 years at over $1 million a year for Callum Wilkie. That is their number one target. Just speaking to people, I think a few rival clubs as well thought when that offer was made, it would just get rejected out of hand. He'd stay at St Kilda on a bigger deal. I think the longer this goes with each passing day, more and more, I wouldn't say confident, but more and more optimistic the Dogs get, I think. I think they might have thought that one might have got knocked back straight away. The fact that it hasn't been means that Cal Wilkie's got something to think about, but they do need a key defender. They've got a little bit of interest in Jordan Butts as well, but I think a few things would have to happen for it to get to that point, and he's another player that Adelaide don't want to lose.
What's the trade for Wilkie if he did want to go, and what would actually make St Kilda move then?
It's hard. It's hard to know. You'd have to think 10 to be on the table, maybe a future one as well, given he's at a later stage of his career, 2 years left on his contract. It's an interesting one to evaluate.
I'm also just on 10 and 28. I'm also looking to see if they package those up to see if they can get the Gold Coast pick a little bit higher.
The Port Adelaide Gold Coast pick?
Yeah, the Gold Coast number 6 pick at the moment. So that pushes up. And would that then be moved into St Kilda? Would that keep them happy? Would 10 and 28 make it done? Or do they just want to get up the board to get into that top 6 or 7 selections of the draft?
So Connor Budrick has met with clubs this week, having finished Gold Coast's season. Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, as we've mentioned, North Melbourne and Essendon also. I think the Western Bulldogs are the front runner for Connor Budrick now if he does choose to leave the Gold Coast Suns. We know Buku Khamis under contract but heading to Carlton. And what's going on with Jamal Ugle-Hagan, do you reckon?
Well, it's going to wait out until the end of the trade period and to see if they get a bite. But he's not going to be at the Western Bulldogs next year. It's about whether they see if they get an interest through the trade period or it becomes more of a delisted free agency option for a club with contract obviously to be sorted through for next year. Just on their draft hand as well, they need to make sure they have enough points for Will Darcy. They'll get him, lock that in, he'll be going to the Bulldogs as a father-son.
Where do you see that range being?
Oh, probably somewhere between 30 and 55, somewhere there. But you know, he's a tall, agile Darcy, so he could go even a little bit higher than that in this year's pool. Certainly showed enough at school level, but probably didn't at the next level, given he's probably less exposed at that level. But that's a bit of a watching brief on what the Western Bulldogs do there. Just on, I went a little bit too quick before as well. Just on the Hawks, they've got some of their turn around their contracts for next year as well has become a priority. Josh Weddle is the one that I think is going to be the next $1 million Hawk in 2026. He's going to get some massive offers, I think, heading into next year's contract year. I think he's a player that clubs are already starting to position their eyes on and say, what's the money that could at least make him think about a move? I don't think he moves, but I do think that he's a player that will be getting the $1 million offers. And as soon as the end of his 4th year, could become a $1 million player. And what a player he already has become. Tagged in a preliminary final shows the importance of him at the Hawthorn Footy Club. They do. We've
mentioned their 2026 contract squeeze. They've done well to get a couple of them locked away already. Nick Watson, John Newcombe, Dylan Moore.
And John Newcombe's their only $1 million player into next year as well, but there'll be more of them coming through. And I think Josh Well is going to go pretty close to being that as well. All
right, Cal, massive episode. That's all 18 clubs preview. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram. Get onto our posts. If you comment throughout the trade period, comment right the way through. We'll be giving out a few mugs right throughout the trade period. They're good mugs as well, Cal.
They are good mugs.
For yourself there. We'll be giving them away to our funniest comments. That's where you can find us over the next couple of weeks. We're on Trade Radio 12 to 1 every single day. Starting from today, don't forget, over the next couple of days, get down to the Footy Festival at the MCG to catch us live from 12 to 1, and then Gettable Trade Desk Live is 2 p.m. every weekday, starting next Tuesday. Cal, tip for the grand final?
Snoop.
Love that from you. So long from me. See you next week.